Okay, in this video I'm going to look at the collection of puzzles that I have on my Kindle. So I have a series of different ebooks on my Kindle that I have written, and as you can see, most of them are about tactics, although not all of them. Some of them are about opening preparation and different other subjects of chess. But for now we're going to look at the last quarter of 2016 and look at some puzzles and some great chess combinations that occurred in that quarter. And this is volume 8 out of the Modern Chess Combination series. And now we're going to actually flip through the pages. So in the introduction we can see that the book has this layout where you are presented with a diagram, and it's telling you which side's turn it is, and then you can look at the position, and when you go to the next page you see the solution. And pretty much all the layout is kind of like that. I'm gonna flip through the first few introductory games, and then we're going to get into the most interesting games of that quarter here. So here is maybe the most famous game of the year, where Magnus Carlsen and Sergei Karakin were doing the playoffs for the World Championship title. And the last game was where Magnus was ahead by 1 point, and Sergei was trying to catch up, and he had the worst position for most of the game. And in the end, he fell to this combination where Magnus delivered the forced checkmate, and he played this move in a split second, which goes to show that it's very important to see combinations in chess, because in the rapid game, this can be the difference between losing and winning. So if you had followed any chess events recently, you would probably recognize the position, and you'd see that the decisive move is the queen going to h6. And here immediately black resigned, because no matter how he defends against the checkmate, against the check, his king will be checkmated. So here you get to visualize the position with the queen on h6 already, and if the king takes, then the rook gives the checkmate along the back rank. And just to annotate this a little bit, basically after this move, if the king takes, then the rook gives the check on the spot, and then the game is decided this way. If on the other hand the pawn takes, then the rook takes here, and this also gives checkmate to the king. So that pretty much explains why here black resigned. And another game from the same match was also decided by the tactic. This is during the classical part of the match, the classical time control part of the match. Here black was Sergei, and he played the move that was a bit more complicated than the previous combination, but this also decided the game for him. If you remember, then you probably know what the move was, but if you don't, just to highlight the critical parts of this position, let's just see. Erase this, and so the critical parts here are that this pawn is currently being controlled by the queen, but there are also other features in this position, such as the knight is is ready to hop here and attack the black attack the white king. And the white queen here is doing two things. It's ready to, well, it's both guarding this diagonal, and it's also, in many variations, if black starts to attack the king, the white king immediately, then this king will be in danger, and white is probably going to be able to give the perpetual check to the black king. So what black played here was move to distract the white queen, and so going to the actual solution, we'll see that he played pawn to a2, and here we can see the variations that explain that. Here black resigned because the pawn here and the queen out of the way, and black can give this check, and the king then is, if he goes to here, then there's this checkmate, and basically also the king is forced to go here, and then as you can see in the variations here, the queen comes to g1, and this forces the checkmate on h2, and very importantly, the black king is safe from the checks because the black queen is covering all the squares, and then also if the bishop moves, then there's knight to f2. So moving on to other positions. So there is over 100, probably over 140 or so puzzles in this book, and here we'll try to solve the next one, just to kind of illustrate how would one go about solving all these puzzles. Not the ones from the most famous games of the quarter, but just generally, how do you improve your tactics by solving these puzzles? So here is just a game from a blitz tournament by the grandmasters, and here we'll look at this position. White to move. White has a ferocious attack here. So if I were to think about this, it feels like that this knight here really is holding the position, so it makes sense to probably sacrifice here, and then when black captures, the queen should come out here, and next move it will capture on h5, and then this king basically is attacked by too many of white pieces. There's a knight here, there's a knight here, there's a bishop here. Black has just not enough defending pieces to save all these assaults from the white pieces. And moving on, we see the solution. Indeed, this rook takes f5, and then black takes, and the queen comes out to g5, and black immediately resigns because there's nothing he can do here. Moving on to the next position, another blitz game. A lot of these, so all of these positions are really taken from games between the top players, probably at least 2,500 or so. And these guys don't allow a lot of combinations unless they're playing in a blitz tournament, in which case it's hard to defend well, but they're still very, very quick to spot these opportunities if the opponent allows. So here we can see that there's this rook along the 7th rank that's very strong, and this knight here is close to the king as well, and so it's not immediately obvious how to take advantage of these active pieces, but if you look at it, this bishop is really holding everything. It's defending the 7th rank, it's defending this pawn, it's really having too many duties to fulfill here, and that may suggest a solution if that hasn't been obvious yet. I have to point out that the solution also has to be kind of on a spot, because otherwise, white either has to exchange queens, or move the knight away or something. The attack either breaks through or it just kind of filters out. So if you see the solution already, it should be no surprise when I reveal it to you. And indeed, the solution is to take on h6, and then if the bishop takes, then the rook comes over here and gives checkmate to the black king. So these basically are the types of positions that we see here. This is I went through the introduction pretty quickly, and then this is only about 10% of the book, so there's more and more of these puzzles, and in the future videos I may continue illustrating how one goes about solving these combinations and improving their chess tactical skills. But I hope this video should give a pretty good idea of the format and the difficulty level roughly, as well as kind of the workflow. How does one just like load up the book on their phone and start to solve puzzles one by one, which is pretty self-explanatory, but still worth an illustration.